Welcome to Richer Soul, Sophia West. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I'm excited to learn from you today. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your school and family teach you about money?
Well, I'm going to say school, probably zero through school. I think I learned about money the same way a lot of people do, through some silence, through some tension, mixed messages. As a kid, no one really talked about money openly, but my parents were both products of the Depression. So I had one parent that was born in 1923 and one was born in 1929. And they literally took polar opposites of how to handle money. Like, my dad saved everything because he was worried about what happened in the Depression, and my mom spent everything. So she was scared. If she had it, she was spending it. So I really didn't know how to deal with that, and I guess I found my way about money, as an adult. So really, no great foundations for me.
I think that's a typical story. And it's funny how two people can go through the same time period and their reaction to it is vastly different, right? And I don't know the specifics of your parents, but one sees, oh, we're in a depression, we always have to have and save. And the other might have just thought, hey, it might all disappear, so you might as well enjoy it while you have it.
Exactly. As if the fear imprint that we have as kids or as growing up is really very strong and very powerful motivator. So that's what I believe. Both of them were in fear of some level and had to do with their money what they felt best for them.
And it doesn't sound like you had any money imprints really on you growing up from that.
No, I didn't. But here's a really interesting thing. If anyone were to ask me on my journey what my holdup is, I do have a financial ooch, and I think it comes from I was in an upper middle class family. There was nothing I wanted for. Parents had a vacation home. We were very, very solid. It's a beautiful financial existence. And at the same time, I got married very young out of high school. My husband wasn't very good with money, and we had a horrible time. And we lived in an impoverished state with two kids through my 20s. And it was the point where, you went back down to the paycheck and we were eating ramen or mac and cheese for a couple days because we just didn't have that money. And so my imprint, if you want to call it that, of a little bit of fear of money happened when I was a little bit older. It happened in my late teens and my early 20s. So there's always this fear of, oh my gosh, I don't have it, or what am I supposed to do, or not knowing enough. So it's kind of interesting. It had nothing to do with my upbringing, but all to do with, well, I guess, now that I just said that, maybe it had all to do with my upbringing because no one taught me. So if I would have been taught, I would have felt a little bit better. That's how you hear it and the answer comes.
And that's kind of surprising because your parents went through a time when there was financial difficulty, then they had success, but yet they didn't bother to say anything.
No, my parents were of the I would say the generation, so I'm 63. My parents were the generation that they didn't teach a lot, that the school taught me. It was everything about my life I learned in school, and my school system didn't have, we had math and algebra and calculus and trig and all that, but there was no how to balance a checkbook. There was no how to save money. I mean, back in, I think, first grade, there was a savings account, a savings and loan place that you'd bring in 15 cents or whatever every week and put it into your bank account. But that was about it.
Well, that's not surprising. Schools really don't teach about money. So
and they should. Yeah.
And they should.
Yep.
Definitely not. So you had that kind of rough start, and then you've kind of taken a spiritual journey. How did that come to be?
Well, so my spiritual journey isn't like a straight line. It's like more of a spiral of remembering. I always felt connected to something bigger, even as a child. I always felt like something was watching me. Like I felt like I was on stage all the time and hundreds of people watching me. And I was very shy and I didn't want them watching me, but I always felt like I was never alone. I would hear things, I would feel things, I'd sense energy, things that I couldn't name. But many of us, I'm not going to say I was taught to shut it down because I was raised with love, but I was also raised with a family who didn't agree on spirituality. So what happened to me, all of these I would call senses and gifts were online until about 9 years old. I had a sister that passed away from Hodgkin's disease, and I went internal. I went into a hermit stage where like I just threw myself into my books. I became a straight A student. All I cared about was education. And then I shut all the other stuff down because I felt everything. I knew that she died. I knew when she died. No one even said anything to me until hours later. So it was a scary thing. So it's like life cracked me open. And then I stayed that way until my 30s. And that man that I told you about that I married right out of high school, I had this epiphany that, you know, when my two children became 18, that I was going to be alone with him. And this wasn't a relationship that was serving me anymore. So all of a sudden, it was literally like the Claritin Clear commercial you see on TV where the fuzzy kind of veil lifts. And all of a sudden, I saw life clear. And I'm like, oh my gosh, through all this grief, through hitting a wall, through all of maybe the outward success, I found something that was greater than me. And every time I would break down, I also broke open. And I was ravenous. I began studying everything. At the time, I was in ophthalmology. I was an ophthalmic technologist and very much in the Western medicine field. And I just knew that there was this homing signal that woke up inside of me that I needed to find answers for. So I would go to the library. I would go to sometimes just the bookstore and read for hours, anything that was self-help or anything that I could find, even one word or one phrase or one tool that would help me understand what I was feeling, because I had no idea what I was feeling. There was just this ache, this draw to know that there was something more than what everything I knew at that point had told me. I knew there was something unseen. There's ancient wisdom. I studied soul retrieval and energy medicine and aromatherapy, craniosacral, everything. I just kept gathering all of this stuff because I wanted to feel better. And I kept hearing back then, and this happened in the 90s, I kept hearing, remember who you are. And I'm like, where am I hearing that from? It wasn't like me saying something and you're audibly hearing my voice. It was just this impression that kept coming into me. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. And I'm like, who am I? I don't know who I am. But through all of that, everything started to unravel. And once I remembered, my life became about helping others do the same exact thing. So that's kind of it in a nutshell of how it started and where I am right now. I'm helping others find their own remembrance.
Through all that research, was there a particular area that kind of stuck out to you that kind of really brought about the change, or was it just all these different, because there's so many different modalities you mentioned, and even in this space it seems like there's so much stuff, and it becomes hard to decide what's for me, what really works, what's true. It's very confusing.
It is. It's extremely confusing. And no two people's journey is going to be the same. I mean, even Siddhartha, the Buddha, when he found enlightenment, people would come to him and say, teach us how to find enlightenment. And he said, I can't teach you. You have to find it yourself, because it's unique to everyone. And what is really fascinating about my journey, the books that I started gathering were like Illuminations by Marianne Williamson, a book called Real Moments by Barbara DeAngelis, Don Miguel Ruiz's concepts, Wayne Dyer, The Peaceful Warrior. I can't think of the name of the author that wrote The Peaceful Warrior. But each one of those, especially Real Moments by Barbara DeAngelis, really honed in on my power, my ability to be worthy enough to have a life that I feel comfortable with, that I feel peaceful with. So basically, the first probably 9 or 10 books that I started to literally devour in my consciousness all had to do with self-help and helping me find out who I was. And then once I realized who I was, then I started to go back. I went back to school while I was holding down a part-time job. I went back to school. I went to get my national boards for massage therapy. And then I went into energy medicine and craniosacral work. And then once I had a pretty solid practice, that's when I left ophthalmology. But the modalities that you talked about, they didn't really come to me until after I came back online. I learned about who I was and what I wanted. And I knew what I wanted was not to be stuck in a medical office dealing with all of that red tape, and the things that were changing in medicine at the time that I was leaving were things that I just did not want to be there. Did not want all of that. So I wanted to be not a cog in the wheel. I wanted to be the person that helped guide someone And that's what I am right now. People come to me not for me to give them answers, because the answers are in here, the answers are in there. They come to me for me to guide them to the answers, not to give them the answers. Does that make sense?
It does. We'll dig into it. I think Peaceful Warrior is Dan Millman.
That's it. Dan Million. Dan, I'm sorry if you're listening. I love his book. I mean, his books were amazing.
I've read all his books, and they made a movie out of one of them.
Did they really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Peaceful Warrior was made into a movie.
Oh, I have to pick that one up. I love those movies because I mean, I love those books because Celestine Prophecy was another one that all of the books took you to this place where it was like they're going to get ready to tell you about God, and they're going to get ready to tell you how to crack yourself open, and then they didn't. And I'm like, oh, what? And then I realized it was all about like the guidepost along the way, that we're supposed to pick the puzzle pieces up, and then and only then can we find our own way. It wasn't going to be found 100% in any book.
And that's what I've heard with everything. Like, you have to get to a certain point, and people can get you to the point. But the point that they're getting to you is letting go of all the programming you were taught, right? And then kind of opening up. But then that last step, there's no guide, because you've got to, that's what I've kind of noticed and seen and felt. You have to figure out that last part, because that last part is kind of what you said. Who and what am I? And no one can tell you that necessarily, can they?
No, they can't tell you that, and they can't tell you what to do because, God, creator, gave us free will. And so within that free will, we have so many possibilities. It's like if I were to give up everything today, I would want to go off and be a National Geographic photographer. That's what I feel passionate about, photography, and I feel passionate about traveling, and I would love to do that. So no one could tell me that because they don't know what my passion is. And some people are so buried down deep, don't know what their passion is, don't know what would bring them joy, because through cultural programming, through societal programming, through familial upbringing, we kind of get buried under all of everybody else's impressions and beliefs. So the self-help books, the courses, the retreats, all the different experiences that are available right now will help you start to unlock what's already inside of you. I always tell everyone, each modality, each book, each practice, each session that you have with me, I'm handing you a key. And you're taking that key and you're going to unlock something inside of you. And as soon as all of the areas are open that need to be unlocked, your own inner wisdom is going to come out, because each one of us is a slice or a section of creator, of source. So we all have a soul's code, an imprint, and within that imprint are the cosmic codes of creation. The wisdom of the universe is here. It's not out there. It is not fully out there. It's all here. And when you go to anyone, yes, there's this resonance and relationship of working with someone else. And the old saying that's biblical and spiritual of when two or more gather in my name, there I am. There's a synergy that happens between two people when they're working together on that kind of path. And the presence of the great I am, the great creator, is there. So some phenomenal work can be done one-on-one or in group or in retreat. It's totally available. However, everything has to be discerned by the individual, your own personal filter, your own personal imprints. So all the rest of this stuff is mental mechanisms, because all of these guides, these teachers, these practitioners, the courses, whatever, they're showing you the way to find out what's already in here. Because there's no one, I mean, I see a lot of books behind you, and I have a ton of books, downstairs on my shelf as well. There's no one book, there's no one modality, and there is no one person living on the face of this earth that's going to give you the full answer. You can go collect a lot of different wisdom, and then you got to come back and put it right here, and then take that finger and point here and say, I'm the one that can give me the wisdom, because I have been guided by people to find myself. Does that sound correct to you? Or
It sounds correct. I know people are going to struggle at that step, though.
Which step?
The pointing inward.
Okay.
And trying to find the answer. At least that's what I've noticed. You're dealing with a lot more of these people. What do you see? Like, how easy is that step to take?
Believe it or not, it's as easy as going over to the wall and flipping the light switch. That's how easy it is. I'm not going to say it's that quick. And this is why I'll say this, because no two people's journey is alike. I'm 63 and I started to wake up at 33. So I'm on a 30-year journey. I'm still not done. I'm still evolving and expanding. And there are people that for many, many years with the work I've been doing, it was mainly people 40 something or older that started to wake up and say, hey, there's something more out there for me than this 9 to 5 job, or this striving to be the millionaire, the billionaire, the wealthy, the successful, the whatever. There's something that's not fulfilling me, and I got to find out what that is. And so most of those people were already generationally past the age of wisdom in 40, 50, 60, 70-year-olds. Now I have teenagers, I have 20 somethings, I have 30 somethings that are coming to me. And some of these people are cracking open like that. And I will also say some of the 40 somethings, 50 somethings, 60 somethings were cracking open like that too. So there's no timeline. I can't give you a prescription and say, Rocky, if you read these 10 books and you go to these 10 retreats and then you go work with these people, then by the end of that, you're going to be able to go over to the wall and flip that light switch and you're going to have enlightenment. It doesn't work that way. You could get to the first book and go, I got it, right? Everybody's different. So easy, 100% easy, because why? The wisdom's in here. So all you need to do is unlock it. And sometimes some people have one big key that unlocks it, and some people need 57 keys. But it's still that easy because it all just has to come open from inside. And that's a lot of what people are doing now when they go to shamans. I'm also a shaman. I do soul regression and I do soul retrieval and just all kinds of different work that helps people try to find themselves. And again, I've actually worked in this type of work since 1999. So let's just say it's 25 years. So 25 years of this type of work, and I've seen thousands of people. I've had just two in my line of work in this time frame that have gotten off of this table and cracked wide open and found out who they were immediately. Just two. Never had to come back. One guy was on a therapist's couch for 12 years. He sat up off the table and he said, I see it all now. I can't believe I wasted 12 years of my life on a therapist table. So was the session I did what cracked him open, or was it the 12 years on the therapist table and then everything came together on this table? And the other person was similar. A similar thing happened. So it's only two people that I know that cracked wide open, that went from, when I say that, it's not that they weren't doing any other kind of work prior, but the reason why I say cracked wide open is they never did this kind of work. They never went into the esoteric, into the evaluation of self before. They were always doing the stuff that the material world told them to do, like go to a counselor, or talk to this, or talk to your religious leaders, that kind of thing. They never went behind the norm of what society knew how to, guide you, and go into self-help or go into practitioner-led help. So again, super, super easy. Timeline is different for everyone. And again, the timeline is different because in the quantum field, the only thing that exists is the now. So I say that that's easy for you because when I see your field, I can see that, you cracking open is right there in your field. And all you have to do is reach out and get it. However, your free will that God gave you may take you around the bend a little bit and going and doing some more things before you go over and pick up that choice. Does that make sense?
It does. We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
So it's funny because the tagline of the show was, you got rich, now what?
Now what?
which was because, okay, you did the materialistic stuff and it didn't give you what you expected. And so here you are now, and what are you going to do about it? So I guess my question though is there a faster way there? Because if you can see it, you can see it. Clearly the others can't, because then we wouldn't be walking around the bend in circles. Is there a way to get there faster?
There's a lot of people that are seeking that faster way. And I'm going to say there's an old saying, Archangel Michael had said this in different, or at least it was channeled through Archangel Michael, all will be known when your waiting is full. Now that's kind of a riddle. So what does that mean? You will know it all when your waiting is full. So timing is really everything. I think the only faster way there is if you truly believe you already have it. And as you truly believe that you already have it, it will come rushing to you in the respect that your beliefs create your reality. Your beliefs magnetize things that you wish to have come to you quicker. Does that make sense to you about what I'm saying there?
It does.
Okay.
It's kind of like the other saying that I always hear: when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
100%.
Same concept,
It's
right?
absolutely 100%. But so personally, what I believe for people is that they don't know that they're the teacher. They're seeking all of these other outside sources, and they really are they're the teacher. They're the ones that have all of what we need to know. All of what each individual needs to know is already in here.
And we've talked about this concept before, and I'm starting to truly see it and understand it. It's the concept of subtraction. It's don't need more, I need less. And when you stop holding on to the more, then things just happen. You don't have to push for an answer. You can just be and it will happen. But we tend to want, and my questions were all about, how do I do more? How do I go faster? Which technically is the wrong questions, because it's how do I stop and just become, in a sense.
Well, the biggest thing is gratitude. You focus on gratitude for what you have. The reason why people always feel like they need more is because there's a hole inside. There's something here they're feeding. They might not know that, but when is enough enough? That's the question you have to ask yourself. I have a feeling that some of it will start to come over, that the answer to that will come over an individual when they start to answer this homing signal that the soul is calling. Because what happens is, even with myself, like I went to New York City with my daughter on her 16th birthday a couple years ago, and we're walking around the streets like near Times Square and going into the knick-knack souvenir shops. I really I had like this epiphany. I'm looking at all these teeny little knickknacks, and I was going to bring something back to my grandkids, and I'm like, why? Why? They don't need that. And there's this like, who's making the money off of stuff that we really don't need, that we're going to bring into our house and we're going to throw away in a few years?
A few years?
Right, or maybe right away. I don't know. Maybe it would be right away. But it's this concept of consumerism, and I think I'm not saying that doesn't happen worldwide, but in the United States of America, we are a consumers nation. And consuming means you've got to take something outside of you and you've got to bring it inside of you. And so whether that's inside your house, inside your body, whatever, we consume. And it's because we are just looking for something to make us feel whole. And this, our belief system, once again, if you believe you're successful, if you believe you're a whole, if you believe you are where you're supposed to be, if you believe that thing that you're supposed to connect to that's going to shift your life is right there and you get a choice to pick it up, then it will happen. Because where your attention goes, your energy is going to flow there. And we're energetic beings. No one else is going to go make the money for you. So if you say to me, Sophia, I want to start a new business and I'm going to start creating, I don't know, a new type of phone that's going to compete with all the other phones. And so everybody else might say to you, Rocky, there's some pretty big brands out there that you don't want to compete with because you're not going to make any money. And Rocky's belief says, yes, I am. I'm going to make this amazing phone. And so you put your attention there and the energy is going to flow. All your belief is going to go to that. And while you do that, it will become successful because of your belief, because you were going to intend it as so. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
It does to me.
Okay.
I don't know if it does to others, or maybe it's a new thought, but yes, it does. And it's funny because even in society, you see these hidden, what I call hidden markers. I think back to the Star Wars movie and Yoda. It's like the force is within you. Look, there's a hidden, Hollywood's really good at actually telling you these things. We don't always notice the things that they say. And I found that a good movie kind of unveils those secrets within it.
1,000%. I wouldn't agree with you more. I quote, when I teach my students, I have several different classes going on at one time. When I teach them, I'm always quoting all the pop movies. What you just said about the Force. Back when the Force was talked about, most people didn't know. I mean, they always like that. Okay, they're crazy, right? However, the common consciousness is getting these impressions from Hollywood blockbusters, Infinity Wars, Marvel movies, Endgame. I mean, all of these movies take you to a certain point. They give you a certain concept, just like those books I was talking about, and then they don't give you the whole answer. Like, how do you connect to the force? What is this mysterious force thing? Can you describe that in scientific terms? Because we're an analytical society and we want it in scientific terms so we can wrap our mind around it. When in fact, everything in art, ever since the beginning of time, art has been inspired by the muses. What are the muses? The angels, the cosmic consciousness. They're inspiring the people who are creating to give consciousness to specific messages to the common consciousness, to the greater good of humankind, by little dribs and drabs. Like, whoever channeled that information about the force, this is what I want you to tell them. Tell them about the force. Make a story around it, right? All these different things are coming into our consciousness to get us to wake up. And at the same time, not to give us all of the answers, because if we got all the answers, then what would we do with them? Like those books that I sent.
We wouldn't listen.
We would not listen. So we have to go and look deeper at what is going on and take that message and just allow it to resonate within us. Because this energetic force, seen or unseen, is very much real. And the noetic sciences have proven it. Like I said, the books that I sent you, that I wrote, I would love to see them in a movie, because they have so many messages that people would be able to pick up again, on subtle consciousness levels, excuse me.
Do you know, has something shifted that you're noticing that younger people are finding these answers quicker?
They are, because the earth is shifting. The consciousness of humankind is shifting. We are expanding at a rate consciously that is never been seen in human existence before. And the fact, I also believe that, you and I we didn't grow up with the internet. We didn't grow up with social media. So there's a lot of exposure, and to be able to touch that. Right. So, and at the same time, there's a higher purpose for these kids to wake up, because they're the next generation. They need to know what's going on. They're the ones that aren't tired. The rest of us are like, we're at the end of this. Like, we're a little tired of the good fight. Even though we're doing the good fight, it's a little bit tiring. These kids need to step up. And I believe that they're answering a call for their soul when they've come to this earth to help us shift. Because there's I see a lot of children that are labeled with attention deficit or autism or dyslexia or all these different labels. These kids there's nothing wrong with these kids. These kids have a higher frequency than we could ever even attain, because they're here to teach us. And as they teach us, then we will subtly shift our frequency. But we can't force them into the box that we were put into. There's no box for these kids. There's no box for any of them. So let's let them be free to show us the way. And that energetic frequency is where we're going as a society. So I think that's why they're waking up a little bit quicker.
Have you seen the Telepathy Tapes podcast?
I have not.
It's basically stories of children with autism and how they are able to communicate on a whole vastly different level. It's one of the top podcasts out there. At least it was. I mean, maybe it still is. And it just explores that whole journey and what's going on with these kids.
I'll have to write that down.
So, at least the way I grew up, and I think it's changing, on the one side you have money and wealth, and then the other side you have spirituality. But they aren't mutually exclusive, are they?
They are not. So, wealth is absolutely an energetic force, just like anything in the universe. Money at its core is just energy in motion. It's a tool that amplifies what's already within us. If we see money just as numbers, like in an account, it actually loses its potential. But if we recognize it as a resource for expansion, for healing, for collective elevation, then we can direct the energy with intention. So the key to aligning financial success with personal and spiritual purpose is to understand that money itself is neutral. It's how we use it that matters. I tell everybody when I first started working in just the energetic realm, I only would accept cash, not because of, accounting or anything like that, but because cash is a currency and it has energy. It's different than a credit card. It's different than a check. And so it had currency. And I would tell people that, to basically tribute or tithe to me, to the energy, what they felt. I never put a dollar amount on it when I first started, because I told them, 2,000 years ago, you'd be bringing me a duck and two chickens, or a cow, or I don't know. I mean, it's an energetic exchange that matters. And ever since, and I don't know this, we're going down another little rabbit hole here. So I'm just going to go down the hole, and we're not going to stay in that hole for a second, but I just want to explain to you something. When the continent of Atlantis was in its existence on the face of this earth, currency was always balanced with gold and silver. So a coin had gold and silver on it. And the reason that happened is because gold represents the divine masculine and silver represents the divine feminine. We each person, whether you're male or female, we each have those vibrational forces within us. So in order to stay in balance, the coinage was also in balance. Once Atlantis fell and things started to get messy there, and then the civilizations expanded to other places, you'll notice throughout history that it's gold. Gold is the power. So it's usually out of balance. And the key to finding a balance in finances is to have your intention for what you're doing with the finances to be aligned with your spirit. So, financial success and personal and spiritual purpose is that understanding, once again, that money, it's neutral, but your intention is what's programmed it. So when we approach wealth with gratitude, with integrity, and with service, I highly recommend, highly believe that everyone should be tithing to a nonprofit or a church, or, churches are nonprofits, but to give back or find a family to support or do something when great wealth comes your way, because it's a cycle of life that the more you put out for your success, the more success comes back to you. And again, it doesn't have to be a number in an account, but money is actually a conduit for the greater good, whether through philanthropy or conscious investments, what you're investing your money in. Make sure that the things you're investing your money are consciously in alignment with what you believe, your moral ethics, your values. But simply using money to create more time for yourself is really valuable. When you use that money to take care of yourself, first and foremost, your personal growth and your connection, you can transform wealth into something really deeply fulfilling. I mean, there shouldn't be someone out there who is very wealthy and going through some really, really tough emotional mental times. There are ways around it. That those resources are very, very important to help move you through those places, but you have to know where to look, who to look for, and how to be guided.
So you've said something that's very intriguing that I've never heard anyone say, but I feel it. And here's what I mean by that. Even my kids have felt it. You take a crisp $100 bill out of a wallet and you feel it giving that $100 bill away, but it's paper. Why is it that you feel that, but if I take a credit card out, there's no feeling?
Because most economic systems, and I know that this is really not a whole lot true here in the United States these days, but our money was always backed by gold. Our money was always anchored in something that was from the earth, and technically it came out of the earth, right? I don't want to go on another tangent about where silver and gold actually come from, but it is, in veins under our earth, okay? So it's very grounding, and it is real. It's tangible. Credit card is plastic, and it's really not real, because, when I say that, not real, you are putting something on credit. Most people who use credit cards are not paying that bill off at the end of the month. So it's really not real. It's not backed by anything except for in an account that says how much money you owe. Or that $100 bill, that's real. That's something you pass on, and that $100 bill is yours. You can pass it on, and it can buy whatever that person needs that you just gave it to. And you don't have to do anything behind scenes to make that $100 real, because it's already real. And it's backed by something that is connected to this earth, which, again, in principle, our money was supposed to be backed by the gold reserves in Fort Knox years ago. And I think that in principle, we still have an energetic tie to that.
Well, it's funny because today people don't use cash very much.
They don't.
But at the same point, and you kind of see it in the movies, and I think you even see it in life, somebody carries around a big wad of cash or a big wad of hundreds. It does create kind of a different feeling.
It does. Yeah, it's because it's in the psyche, will equate that to real success because again, it's tangible. It would be like me saying once again, this stuff out here is called the force. Well, Sophia, I can't see that. I can't touch that, but I can give you my AirPods and say, this is energy and these things work, and you'll believe it because it's tangible. But it's hard not to see that. So a credit card, even though that thing swipes and it's still charging an account, what it's backed by for, again, the majority of the people in the United States, that's a statement that they get at the end of the month that calculates all the things that they put on their credit card. And they don't pay that off at the end of the month, most people. I wish that was the case. I wish people could, because then it could anchor it into more of a reality. It's a lot of the reason why I think people were having trouble with the cryptocurrency at first. Well, what is that? You know what I mean? What is it really backed by? So now when you feel the cash, when you feel the coins, when you count the coins, you are connected to an energy that is mineral based. Mineral based is earth based.
It's interesting. I will say, I think poverty has an energy too, and it's quite negative.
Yeah.
And you can feel it.
Yeah. There's a sadness. My daughter, like I told you, we're not like in the wealthy range of people. We're in just middle class. And we live down near Washington, D.C. And actually, we're in Maryland, but near Washington, D.C. And my family's all up in Baltimore, Pennsylvania. And we drive through the city of Baltimore. And as a very, very young age, I mean, she was in her car seat, she would just get these terrible pains in her belly, worried about the people on the street holding the signs and they look sad. And so you're looking at a toddler that recognized that feeling that you're talking about. And that feeling is something that is very uncomfortable for some people. And her second observance of that whole situation was she's a little bit older, and she said to me, Mama, why do those people in the other cars not look at the people holding the sign? Why are they not looking at them? And basically what she was saying to me is, why aren't they acknowledging these people? Because it makes them uncomfortable. It's not just that they don't have money, they don't want to give it away, and it's not because they don't believe them. It's that makes people uncomfortable. And it's that poverty level. Even, I don't care where you are on the socioeconomic scale, it's uncomfortable. And because it's a dense energy, and it's something that most people who are working towards being successful and wealthy are going away from that dense energy. They're moving away from that. Does that make sense?
It does. It does a lot. Yes. So you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. You work with a lot of wealthy people. And I'm not asking for a specific of a person, but like, what are the themes that you see that they're still struggling with, or what is it that they're trying to achieve?
More wealth.
Are they? So then, but really, is that really what they want?
No,
Because
it's not. It's not. It's really what they want. And I do have a few that I coach. I coach them, on a weekly basis, and I work with one-on-one with them. And a couple of them have health problems. And I'll go back to the fact, like, I know what you can do to get rid of this. Why aren't you doing this? So I'm trying to be a bridge between the medical world that's telling them something and the energetic world that can actually, quote unquote, make it better. I'm not going to use the heal word or the cure word, but it's going to make it better. And I'll say to them, why aren't you doing this? You have all these resources. You should be doing this, and this. But it's hard to break through the analytical side, because most of the entrepreneurs I work with are geniuses. They're like brilliant. I mean, I sometimes can't keep up. I'm like, what did you mean by that? What did teach me? What are you talking about? So there's a lot of stuff going on in their heads, and they're very energetic, and they have a lot to focus on. And that is all a lot of analytical stuff. I have a couple of them that are very creatives, but for the most part, it's analytical entrepreneurs. And at the same time, I'm trying to get them to know that these are the things that you can do to help your health. But sometimes they just feel more comfortable just coming to me. Let me work on them because I am safe, and they've already met me and they already know what I feel like. And so I'm a safe zone that is the bridge between that world and the other world. And pretty soon I introduce them to the other side. And I do have one entrepreneur that is just the most amazing soul. And he knows, like, he came to me and he said, I want to be a billionaire, and I'm going to make everybody around me a billionaire, and I want you to be a billionaire. And I was like, whoa, I don't know what I do, something that could make me a billionaire. And he goes, I want to hear that. You're going to be a billionaire. And I'm like, okay. So I said to him, I'll work with you. And this is before we started working. I said, I'll work with you on one condition. You have to answer a question for me. And because just because somebody has money, I is not why I work with him. There has to be a resonance. And so I said to him, why do you want to be a billionaire? And he immediately said the one thing that I would say if someone ever asked me that question. And he said, freedom. Freedom. That's freedom of his soul, freedom to do what he needed to do to help people. And I was like, okay, you got yourself a coach.
Here is this thing. You don't need $1 billion to be free.
He's very young, and you're right. He's already there. But again, there's that, this is part with some people, you have an idea of what success is. Success really, truly isn't what's in your bank account. Success is what value do you bring to your life and the lives around you. And if you have a lot in your bank account, what value can you help others with? There's so many people that I work with that some of them have already started foundations to help different things, which is great. And some of them haven't. I'm like, your value is, what are you doing with all the stuff you're accumulating? Are you helping yourself? You have to help yourself first, because just like in the airplane, you got to put the air mask on yourself before you can help anyone else. So once you help yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a self-serving way, a selfless way, will allow you to have the ability to help other people. And that's really where value comes. What are you really doing? Is the work you're doing supporting humanity, or is it pulling humanity back? So those are the things that I like people to focus on. What are those questions? What are those answers for you?
So how is it that you help people? Like, if somebody asks, what do you do, or how do you do it? Is there an answer to that?
So much. For years I struggled with that, because when I got out of medicine, and I could say I'm in ophthalmology, it was a lot easier. It was a lot easier to say that's what I did. Once I got out, I'm such a mixed bag of stuff that I meet each person where they are. So if someone comes to me and they need craniosacral work for their body, they're going to get that. If somebody needs soul retrieval, they're going to get that. I'm not like I only specialize in this and I can't do anything else. My energy channel will connect with your energy channel, and we work together in symbiosis to create what you need, actually very carefully curate an experience for each person. And that experience changes from time to time. I mean, like, you come see me once a week for 3 weeks, each time it could be totally different. So I just recently actually started to call myself a Noetic alchemist. And a Noetic alchemist, noetics means the inner wisdom. It's a Greek word meaning nous. And alchemy, I mean, most people are familiar with the word alchemy, about turning base metal into gold. And so when the Noetic alchemy is, I help guide you in finding your own inner wisdom and finding that golden pathway for each individual person. Because while I'm teaching the ancient wisdoms and the energy wisdoms, I find that financially successful people tend to integrate later on, after they've reached a certain point, they integrate mindfulness and energy practices so that they can create balance and have fulfillment. But the first step is to know that success without inner peace is just another form of struggle. If you don't have that inner peace, what's the success going to do for you? So I help guide you to find your own inner peace. I'm not going to tell you what that looks like. I'm going to show you where to find it. I'm going to help guide you internally, because it doesn't matter how much money you have. If your spirit feels disconnected or exhausted, what's that doing for you? So if you feel a call, if you know something is going on, then reach out and find out what that is. There are people out there that can help you. I'm one of them, so ultimately the goal is to cultivate inner wealth that will match your outer wealth. Because when your energy is in harmony, both inside and outside, everything's going to flow more effortlessly to you. Your money, your relationships, your purpose, your joy. Did I answer that question for you?
You did. And I think people struggle to find help, partially because, and what I've noticed in the field is there's a lot of people who say they can help. It doesn't mean they can.
Yeah.
And I guess that's true in the money space too. Actually, the money space is full of people who pretend to help.
Is it that way in every aspect of life? In every career? You always have people that are really, really good at what they do, and people who are not so good at what they do, and then people who try to get over people with what they do and not really try to help people. Isn't that just human nature, or the human experience?
I guess it is. I guess I just didn't want to admit it was that bad everywhere.
It really actually is that bad everywhere. I've had, over the past year and a half, 2 years, I also see a lot of practitioners that are in the energy field. And I've had several of them coming to me saying, what are we going to do? Do you know how many people that are in our line of work that went and took a weekend course or went and took a 2-week course and now they're pretending to be it and they're teaching it? I mean, what are we going to do about those people? And I said, I'm not going to do anything about those people. I mean, they're welcome to do what they want. I can't stop that. I can only be authentic in my own space, because where I stand on this earth is where God comes through me. And that means I can meet each person where they are at whatever level they are. I'm not here to try to transform any one field of work. I'm here to show that authenticity is the truth of love. And people who resonate with me will come find that. People who resonate with someone else, then they'll find their way to somebody else. After then, maybe they've gotten misinformation. Something's going to come over them inside and they're going to say, wait a minute, this person doesn't have what it takes. Even though I've already spent that much money working with them, I think I need to find somebody else. So yes, and even in the spiritual energy work field, yes, we have people that are not of the highest caliber. Can you say any more about politics, about religion?
Is there anyone of caliber in politics? But that's
Well,
enough.
I don't know, because I don't want to go down that road. But I mean, even in, like you said, in finance, I mean, in all of the different career paths, it's the human is the common denominator. What do humans do? It's human behavior. So part of what I think some of your listeners, and we've talked about this, where there's this thing happening, like there's something more. And when you know that there's something more, where you feel there's something more, you immediately come in alignment with some higher vibration than where you were.
Yeah, and I think what I have noticed is in the world, there are people who are good at doing the work, and then there are people who are good at marketing. And very rarely do they mix.
You are so right. I mean, people look at me and once they come find me, they're like, how come you're not like famous? How come I don't see you anywhere? I said, because I don't market. And first of all, I'm not good at that. I would have to hire somebody to do that. If people find me, that's meant because they're meant to find me, because I don't have a marketing presence. Marketing, I'll give you a little sidebar. Way back when I was in middle school, I'm an artist as well. I paint, I draw, I do all kinds of artwork. And back then I thought I wanted to be a graphic designer, and I thought I wanted to go work up in advertising in New York. And then I decided I thought wrong, because there's so many messages that had to put out there that weren't 100% truthful. And we were doing things to put it out in our ads just to get people to buy. And all of a sudden, something in my moral compass went, whoop, nope, not for me. I can't do that. I just can't. I can't say something is not what it really is. So the marketing is a double-edged sword. As long as people are 100% truthful in their marketing, I think it's phenomenal. But not everybody is.
And I agree with that. I think they did a whole series called Mad Men on the world of marketing.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it's funny. If you think back, well, people don't realize this. Rudolph is actually Montgomery Ward's creation.
What's Rudolph? I don't know.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
No way.
Yeah, it's a Montgomery Ward creation.
Really?
Yes.
Love that.
Diamonds are for weddings are only in the last little over 100 years. Again, it was marketing creation. And then you'd be shocked at how many things we do are actually marketing creations.
I can imagine.
I think most of sports today is all marketing creations. And yeah, it's become overtly pervasive, and people don't really realize. And it's because if in the 60s, I forget what what brand of cigarettes 4 out of 5 doctors prefer this brand of cigarettes. Yeah, all of that kind of stuff. And they have gotten extremely, extremely good at what they do. And the latest is technology. I mean, the iPhone is designed to suck you in, and it does. And they spend hundreds of millions of dollars testing what they can do to hook your attention and keep you hooked. And the only way out is to turn it all off, to put down the tchotchke at the little store in New York City and say, no, I'm not buying this, right?
Exactly. But the dopamine hits happen because of all those notifications on the phone. So there's so much psychology and there's so much chemical responses that are happening in the body. The serotonin and the dopamine are just like flipping all over the place because of this thing. And there was, I don't know if you saw it, years ago, it might have been around the 2010s, I can't remember. On 60 Minutes, there was a Google blower who came out and said what they did with they called it brain hacking.
Mm-hmm.
How they would do these pings, and when they did the ping, then the ping would hit a dopamine response. So all of these notifications were created to suck us in. And so I have a 19-year-old daughter who's coming out of that right now, but so very much into that. And she didn't start with a phone until I didn't let her have a phone until high school. So
mine's on silent, and I can keep it in black and white. Those two things really help.
that was it Mel Robbins that talked about that, I think.
I'm not sure, but I learned about it a long time ago.
Yeah, black and white's perfect because it's like, who wants to look at that?
Nobody wants, yeah, it turns all the noise down, and having it silent turns the noise down, and the simplest, easiest way to turn it all off. And then you have the time and the peace to go on that internal journey to figure out what is it that you really want when you're not distracted by everybody else saying, do this, buy this, get this, look here and look there.
Or the need or the unseen pressure that someone has told you have to be a certain way or do a certain thing in order to find that peace.
What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Gratitude. Just being in a state of gratitude every morning when I wake up. I go out and I take 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what the weather is, and I just look up at the sky, try to get some daylight. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful that I have a chance to keep on going, and that's the secret for me.
That seems to be the number one answer.
Really?
Yeah.
Really cool. I got the number one answer.
What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
Oh, wow. I would say how to recognize deception through people, that narcissistic behavior, sociopathic behavior, how to recognize that. Actually, no, let me scratch that. Not how to recognize it. What I learned later in life is to believe in my feelings. Because all through my life, my empathic sense, my inner knowing was telling me certain things. And I was told by outsiders that, no, that's not true. That's wrong. But then I would find out later on that I was 100% spot on. If I would go back to my younger self, I would whisper in her ear and say, you believe those things that you feel in your gut.
And it's funny, the people who are good at the con game are very, very magnetic.
It's very charismatic. Yep, 100%.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Be yourself and don't worry about what social media is trying to tell you to be.
That's where we started, right?
I think so.
We all have to be ourselves.
You all have to be yourself. You have to remember who you are. Remember who you are.
If people would like to learn more about you, your services, how do they find you?
Well, I have a website, sophiawest.com, that they can visit. Instagram at Sophia West Wellness is also another option. I also volunteer for a national nonprofit that is focusing now on health and wellness and the individual empowerment of a person and the families, children and adults. And that's goodnight.org, and that's GOODKNIGHT.org.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was really awesome, Rocky.
Hey, thanks for checking out the full unedited video of the Richer Soul podcast. You can get the full audio podcast with intro, outro, and a ton more details here on YouTube or whatever your favorite podcast player is. Don't forget, we've got hundreds of episodes for you to go back through, and you can also get episode information on the Richer Soul website as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you're automatically updated as to what's going on and every time we release a new episode. The first few episodes of the Richer Soul podcast actually lay out the entire framework that everything is built on over all of these years. So check them out as well. Thanks for listening.